Hi, I'm Jérémy.
And I'm Ben.
Together we are 15 degrees north.
Today we're going to show you the sights and sounds of Uzbekistan.
Welcome to the second installment of our Silk Road Odyssey in Uzbekistan.
In this second part, we travel through its most famous cities, starting in Bukhara and ending in the legendary Samarkand.
We began our journey across the Silk Road by flying into the country's capital, Tashkent, before taking an overnight train to Khiva.
Then we headed east to the ancient capital of the Samorid Empire.
Though you travel to and from Khiva in slow Soviet-era train carriages, from Bukhara onwards the trip is much easier with modern high-speed rail links between Bukhara, Samarkand and Tashkent.
At times an autonomous city-state, Bukhara's centre is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and contains 140 protected monuments.
The city dates back 5,000 years, with the city sitting in an oasis in the desert.
Today it's still a thriving city and the centre has been restored to its former glory by the government.
But where Khiva felt like a museum, Bukhara feels very much like a hub of trade, with all its market stalls and traders across the centre, making it feel like the Silk Road is very much alive and well.
Its bazaars sell spices, dates, nuts, jewellery, rugs, ornaments. We obviously had to buy ourselves an Aladdin lamp, and of course silk scarves by the ton.
I guess my mum now knows what she's getting for Christmas.
So I'm a millionaire. No, really, I'm a millionaire. Maybe not in the UK, but here I am a millionaire. I've just taken out 1 million som, which in UK money is about £100, but here I'm a millionaire. Yay!
Bukhara sits close to the border with Tajikistan, and subsequently most of the people who live there are Tajik.
During the 9th and 10th centuries, the city became a major intellectual centre for the Islamic world under the Samanids, when many of its madrasas were established.
Of course, you'll be forgiven not knowing what a madrasa is, because, well, we did not know either, but all three of the Silk Road cities are filled with them.
Each of the big blue archways that we've shown you so far is attached to a madrasa, which is a large courtyard surrounded by bedrooms. Yes, that's right, bedrooms.
So, in other words, they were basically university dorms.
Bukhara, like the other cities on the Silk Road, was a centre of learning and academia. The biggest and best thinkers from across the region would gather here, and, if they were deemed intelligent enough, they would be granted a spot in a madrasa.
Subsequently, they would all live together, discussing the newest innovation and critical theories, creating the world's very first think tanks, and doing it in glorious surroundings.
Today, many of these madrasas have been restored to their former glory and they look absolutely stunning.
Bukhara is our second city on the Silk Road, and it is a beautiful city. There's lots and lots of gorgeous monuments. The historic centre is just jam-packed, full of really authentic, beautiful landmarks. It's not quite as beautiful as Khiva was, our first stop, but it is still absolutely beautiful. But we're thoroughly looking forward to heading to Samarkand next, where the most famous monument of all is on this trip.
Do make sure to explore Bukhara at night, because all of the landmarks are lit up so beautifully.
Especially the Kalyan minaret, which looks amazing, lit up brighter than the rest of the city like a beacon.
The final city on our tour is Samarkand.
The most famous of the cities on the Silk Road, it has gained an almost mythological status because it's been so inaccessible for so long.
Now that Uzbekistan is open for tourism, people can finally see this world-famous city, which previously had just been the stuff of legends.
And it certainly doesn't disappoint.
It's a big city, with its landmarks scattered over a large area.
Where Khiva and Bukhara had concentrated old towns, Samarkand is a thriving city that has preserved and restored its towering monuments perfectly.
We talk all the time about how cities often have the same monuments and architecture, and in this case, this city has got some things that are pretty damn special.
The most famous site in the city is a remarkable Registan.
Central Asia's most iconic landmark, this ensemble of madrasas sits at the heart of the city, and people flock from far and wide just to see it.
In the west, its reputation is still small, but in the east, the Registan is a big deal.
And we're fairly sure that as Uzbekistan's prestige as a travel destination inevitably grows, the Registan will be uttered in the same breath as the Taj Mahal, Angkor Wat and the Great Wall of China.
The hub of the Timurid Renaissance, the three madrasas were built one by one between 1417 and 1660, with each housing scholars who flocked to the city from across the Islamic world.
The word Registan is Persian, meaning sandy place or desert.
The square was the centre of the city, where royal proclamations were read and public executions enacted.
The Islamic Golden Age, between the 8th and 14th centuries, had been centred around Baghdad, but the Timurids took up the mantle in the 15th century, and the focus of Islamic learning shifted east to Samarkand.
The city churned out scientists, philosophers and artists, but its most famous advancements came in the field of astronomy, where its scholars made huge strides, and I mean massive ones, in observing, recording and understanding the stars above our heads.
Paper was invented here, and algebra. They mastered gunpowder here too, all in and around this spectacular city.
The Registan, just like the madrasas of Bukhara and Khiva, has not always looked like this.
Nowadays, the blue-tiled facades look like a remarkable relic of a bygone age, but following earthquakes and frost damage, winter temperature variances are big in Uzbekistan. By the start of the 20th century, the structures were unsound, ruined and dilapidated.
In fact, 80% of its tiles were missing, the minarets were leaning and the domes destroyed.
However, thanks to vast Soviet investments in the 1960s and 80s, the site was restored to its former glory.
The Sia Bazaar, which sits in the centre of the city, is definitely worth your time.
It's one of the largest in Central Asia, and you can find produce and trinkets from across the region here, but prepare to haggle because it's not only expected, it's encouraged.
The bazaar is absolutely enormous. You get pretty much anything that you want here.
Yes, it's huge, but don't forget to haggle.
But make sure to get your head around the currency because it's actually quite complicated. Because £1 is about 10,000 som and a million som is less than 100 quid.
When Uzbekistan became independent from the USSR in 1991, it came under the authoritarian rule of President Islam Karimov until his death in 2016.
He was from Samarkand, and his tomb sits in the city's vast mausoleum district, with people visiting it from across the country as a site of national pilgrimage.
Karimov shut the country to outsiders and prevented its citizens from being able to travel.
It's difficult to know exactly what happened in the country during his rule, but evidence suggests that his elections were rigged, opponents assassinated, any dissent prohibited, and the human rights of his people were repressed.
He received international condemnation in 2005 when an anti-government demonstration turned sour and the army massacred 500 protesters.
Following his death, his prime minister took over and was duly elected president. And in the years that followed, Uzbekistan has moved in a markedly different direction, finally relaxing the president's grip on totalitarian power and opening its doors to the international community.
But I think they realised something really important.
What's that?
Well, you only had to see the blank faces of the people we know when we told them that we were visiting Uzbekistan to see how much of a massive untapped resource this country has.
Over these 2 videos, we hope that you can see what we saw. The Uzbekistan Silk Road past has left it with the quantity and quality of historical sites that very few countries can match.
Uzbekistan is ready for tourism. The landmarks have been restored, the infrastructure is in place, everything it needs to make a perfect travel hotspot is in place. It just needs the word to get out.
And mark our words, the word will get out. And so our advice is to go now.
Because when we went, we had these remarkable monuments almost to ourselves.
How's the view?
Incredible!
Wandering around the Registan, all lit up with its gorgeous Technicolor lights, is something that everyone needs to experience.
And they call it the Disney Light Show.
I wonder if Disney has sanctioned,
Shh.
if they've allowed,
Shh.
if it infringes copyright.
Shh. Is too pretty to criticize it.
True that.
The colourful light show starts at 9 p.m. every night.
But before that, it is lit up in beautiful white.
Today, Uzbekistan is open, beautiful, and completely safe to visit.
So go on, book a ticket now before the crowds descend on these gorgeous cities in Central Asia. Thanks for watching.
Be sure to like, share and subscribe.
And follow us on Instagram at 15 Degrees North.
Make sure to tune in to our next video to see where in the world we end up next.
See ya.
Bye!